Can we all be our own personal medium?
We all are our own personal mediums, our own personal channels, our own personal communicators. The magic is within you, and it always has been. It is your birthright, your connection to divine beings, divine spirit. Your connection to your pets is real. Your connection to your loved one on the other side is real. It is your birthright. What we're getting into now is being able to discover your own language, your own special brand of where do you receive messages, how do you receive messages. The messages you receive will start to become crystal clear. I always say to people, if you want to know what's going to happen in your future,
are you ready to shine? Shine bright.
woohoo!
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you want to know the future and what's coming next, then do we have the Soul Speak show for you. Today, I'll be speaking with one of our all-time favorite animal communicators and mediums, Megan Sisk, about how to become your own best medium, hear from your soul, hear from your pets, and learn what the future has in store for you. So welcome back to the show, Megan. Are you ready to shine?
I am, Michael. Thanks for having me back.
Well, thank you for being back. And we are surrounded at this moment. I don't know if they're crows or ravens, but I don't think the mic picked it up, but just as we were starting, before I go, are you ready to shine? I'm hearing.
Our friends are here.
It's so perfect. Okay, before we dive right into things, I wish you could hear that.
I can hear them.
Okay, can we all be our own personal medium?
Absolutely. We all are our own personal mediums, our own personal channels, our own personal communicators. We're all born. It's not a gift, it's a birthright.
Why do you feel we've been taught out of it? Or have we?
Oh, I absolutely believe we've been taught out of it. I mean, this is gonna be unpopular and take us back centuries and centuries, but I believe that if we wanted to trace this back to where it began, it was taking us away from our communion with higher source, God. I think that there was a time in humanity where the powers, the political powers that be, wanted to take away that communication that people had, that communion that people had with higher source and God, and took it into their own hands for control.
Where I'm going with this. And so when I pause like this isn't me stuck for words. I'm having a communication as I do with the other side. And I'm going, how do I bring this about? How do I breach this topic without okay, let's back up. Everybody, I'm ticked off. I'm a little pissed off today. Why am I pissed off? Forgive me. The algorithm wants us to have this prediction show, that prediction show, the other prediction show, and the other prediction show. And I love everybody that I have on the channel. But what happens is we're putting ourselves in a state of victimhood. And I refuse to put us in a state of victimhood anymore. A state of, well, the answers are out there. I have to. And Megan, we're going to drive even more people your way. But the answer is not
going to other people. The gift is within us. I've always talked to my people and my clients and my friends and everyone about the magic of the Wizard of Oz was the one line when she said to Dorothy, the magic is within you. And it always has been. And I've always taught that. I think that there's a lot of reasons that we get pulled away and out of our own sense of connection. There's a million reasons, going back to, has the power been kind of taken away from us? Sure. But then do we also give away our power? It's very easy to want to give away our power. And then there's also the piece of we really want to be validated. We want to be right. And I think as a human, as human beings, we don't want to get it wrong. There's a fear also behind having that and taking the responsibility for what comes to you when you do search for channeling.
I wonder if the fear of getting things wrong, this gets to nature or nurture, if this is one of those nurture ones where we're taught in schools, we're taught in our parenting that you have to get it right. In fact, we have to get it right on the first try, which is insane because that's not how anything on any planet probably ever works. But because of that, we're afraid to trust ourselves. And maybe that's the big picture today is I want to go through steps for channeling for ourselves, but we are so afraid to trust ourselves. And because of that, we do shoot ourselves in the foot and we do choose the answer that we feel we hear the strongest, which may be the egoic mind rather than channeling our spirit or our soul.
There's a lot in there. You brought up a lot from the egoic mind to the spiritual sense of just the knowing. But we've also been taught, and I think this is changing, but we've been taught that you can't make mistakes when in fact we only grow from the mistakes we make. We don't grow from the things we do right. We don't grow, from all the great things that happen to us. We grow from the things we get wrong.
So it's interesting. I got a question on a YouTube Live a few days ago, which was, if I'm doing everything spiritually right, why do things keep going wrong?
And
that seems to, yes, you first.
Say again. So if I'm doing everything,
if I'm doing everything spiritually right, if in other words, I'm a good person, I'm doing my prayers, I'm doing my meditations, I'm doing my manifestation work, and things keep going wrong, the implication is you're doing something wrong.
We're getting caught in the trap of right or wrong thinking. And that's where it all falls apart. If you came from a place that there is no wrong. So I'm in the space of meditating, connecting, I'm deep in prayer, and something happens to me that I wasn't expecting or I wasn't attached to as a manifestation. Is that wrong or is it redirection? And it's all the way that we decide to show up and be in the present state. Because often, if we would just stop for a minute and get out of the egoic mind of how come everything's going wrong, and look around and say, wait a minute, how is this right? How is this right? What is this? That's where I see massive change happen with myself, with my clients, is just shifting that mild perception into what's right about this. You'll see massive change in your life.
It's a question that I've been bringing and I've been teaching people to bring to their automatic writing or first thing in the morning, which is our minds are designed, and this is the nature side of things, based on the limbic system, we're designed to look for danger. And so each morning we get up and we go, what can go wrong today? What if we got up and said, what could go right today?
Exactly. We are wired for survival. I say the same, I have that exact same understanding and awareness that we aren't wired for thriving, we're wired to survive. And so it is up to us to take that monkey mind that we've got that's always looking for danger and say, there is no danger right here, right now. I think Eckhart Tolle has it, nail on the head when he's be here now. Because when you're in here, in this space, in the present moment, you'll find everything around you is right. And that wrong thinking is the defense mechanism of the mind to stay safe, but it has a counter effect, which keeps us in anxiety, in overwhelm, and questioning ourselves. So we look outside of ourselves for the answers.
And I want to dive into how we do this, how we begin to channel. But I'm going back. I'm not trying to victimize us, but we have been taught and trained and entrained by society, by the tribe, to stay small to protect the tribe. If you stay big, in fact, you can watch any movie. What is it? Happy Feet. If you do something unique and different, you get kicked out, like the penguin, the emperor penguin. You get kicked out of the tribe. And so what happens is you take that defense mechanism of stay small to stay safe, and you take it as your own operating system. And that's where we get into huge trouble.
Well, that's right. And that's not even just the outside of us. That's our own ego that is absolutely panicked that if we go and try something different and do something that's a stretch out of our comfort zone, the saber-toothed tiger will actually eat us. And what we have to realize is there aren't any saber-toothed tigers. And if there were, we're going to know exactly how to manage it and handle it. That's that self-trust that I think we need to find.
Would you say self-trust comes, and I'm watching the yachts going
I
behind
know,
me
I love
instead of saber-tooth tigers, we've got yachts. And this is
I'm
not
a
a back,
jail.
this is not a video backdrop. Would you say this trust is cultivated by plugging in to our heart, to our soul? What does it take to start to develop that trust? And then we'll go into how we hear from the other side and know when to trust what we hear from the other side.
I think it's aligning with the awareness and understanding that we are both human and divine. So, and it's been said so many times in so many different ways that we are divine beings having a human experience. And I always want to take it just a step further into loving the human experience. Also honoring that we chose this human experience and we chose it for a reason. We chose to have this experience to feel all the things we're feeling, not just the thrills and the yachts going by and but also to feel the things that are heavy and sometimes hard and have us questioning or getting to what really matters. There's a reason that the Buddha sits there in such a sense of peace because he's mastered, and by he, but there's that mastery of our thoughts, most importantly of anything, and our emotions.
I feel like we could have a T-shirt with the Buddha on it. Maybe it already exists. It's all
It's all
good.
good. It's all gonna be okay. It's all good. I'm all good. Yeah, we could have a whole line of them.
Yeah. Maybe that's where we go from here, except they'd have to be eco. There was nothing going to the landfill. So they have to have a time at which they disintegrate or something.
Just like our thoughts. We should have a landfill for our lower thinking thoughts that just disintegrate, right? Because that's really when we really get down to what is the problem of, what creates this right or wrong thinking? What takes us from our divinity, into that low thinking? It is our thoughts that are the problem. And I think that the secret to all aspects of life is being able to be in a higher place with your thoughts, shifting your thoughts to the higher divinity.
What is an easy, what a loaded question. What is an easy way to do that? So this morning, Jessica and I got on a thought train that I said does keep me up often at night. I jump off of it after a while, but you're up, the mind starts going, and then I have to do the work, and then it lets go. What is the work that helps us jump off of that thought train or stay at that higher state?
Well, as the, great master Byron Katie has taught all of us, it's questioning your thoughts. It's that when you get caught in this looping, oftentimes I just stop and ask myself, is it true? Is this true? This thought that I'm having, it's got me in a sense of overwhelm or anxiety or low vibration. Is it true? Because what you'll find is if you truly do go into that meditation of questioning your thoughts, you're going to find that they aren't true. They're just part of a story that you are choosing to create. And I believe that, our experiences that we have in life come from the thoughts that we're giving to them. I tell
Yes. And the energy we're giving to them.
exactly. And one of my favorite things to tell people and is that you don't have to call psychics. You don't have to reach out and call the psychics, call the channelers, because within you already have access to anything that you need to know. I always say to people, if you want to know what's going to happen in your future, pay attention to what you're doing in your life right now, because it also comes down to our choices. And I think that, the underlying current of what you and I are also talking about is what happened to our choice, what happens to our free will. And that when I make choices that align with where I want to go, I most assuredly will end up there
Or someplace even
or
better.
someplace even better. And that's that connection to that higher source, that higher power of, source energy has such a much better plan for us than we could ever imagine. So when we do tap into that and open up the channel of receiving, it's this or something better.
Thank you. So then, how do we begin hearing that? I almost want to say, how do we become psychic? And you would say, well, we are psychic. This is semantics. But how do we start tapping in? Or are there a few easy steps that we can begin doing this? Or trusting what maybe we're already hearing?
Well, that's exactly, you just used the word. It's, I think that we have to come from a place of trust. There's it's a tough word for some people, but faith is a really big piece of this too. But it's faith that this energy or this ability already lies within me. I've always, used the metaphor of the piano, being able to communicate or do a reading, whether it's with our loved ones beyond or with our pets or, whoever. It's like having a piano in front of you with all of these keys on it and knowing that there is some part of you that is going to be able to learn to play this piano. Some of us are going to sit down and play this piano. You see children do this all the time. Children, I believe, are our greatest examples of they just communicate. There's no questioning. There's no worrying that someone will ridicule them or they'll be persecuted. It's this ability, you put a child in front of a piano, they just start to play it. They just know to push those keys. I think that what comes in handy and what becomes helpful is when we start to learn tools that help us play more efficiently. And what it really is listening. What we're learning to do is we're learning how to listen. And so when I sit down, speaking, from my own experience as a child, because that's when this all began, I just had nobody to tell me that what I was doing was not possible. I was a little, I'm just gonna, all transparency, was listening to a podcast recently where the host and the guest were talking about the phenomenon of imaginary friends and how this is something that children do to avoid, stress or trauma. And I was thinking in my head, or they're actually really connecting with these
Yes.
beings who have come to have these conversations with them. Because when we can set aside limiting belief systems that may have been put on us by either our society or our family culture or our religious culture, when we can set aside and suspend that disbelief and come into this space of awareness of anything and everything is possible, the messages you receive will start to become crystal clear. I think the other thing that gets some of us stuck is we expect these booming messages to come forth or some booming voice to come from out of nowhere. And often what I see is people dismissing their own knowing because it's a little whisper from within. And the greatest messages are often very, very simple and very, very quiet and very, very thus easy to miss.
What do we do? So, is step number one, we need to clear space, have a time, have a place where we do listen, because it's hard. I mean, you love to run. I love to run. That is actually a place where you can hear more clearly, but typically we're just run, 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 go, go, go. And there's no time to even hear that whisper.
So what we're getting into now is being able to discover your own language, right? Your own special brand of where do you receive messages? How do you receive messages? I mean, water is a massive conduit. I cannot tell you, myself included, but I laugh every time I have clients that say, I get all my messages in the shower. And I'm like, me too, right? And is it because in that moment you're alone, there's water, there's no other thought, it's an easy channel, it's easy for them to receive when we can get away. And the problem that I think that we really struggle with is the chatter, the chatter. And then, we've got this ego that I believe is like always on watch, like we're talking about, playing small and staying safe. So oftentimes, a message will come in and the ego will override it. Oh, that's crazy. You're
Yeah.
making that up. That was your own voice.
Yep.
And that's that reason I say suspend that moment of disbelief and just be with it. What if you said, what if that message is coming to me from my grandmother, or from my cat, or from the ravens behind you? What if this really is coming from someplace other than my brain, me, right? And so learning to listen from your own special way. Again, when I teach people how to talk to their own animals or how to make this a career for themselves, one of the first things I want people to align with is what is their particular love language from the psychic realm. Right. And so because we've got all the clairsentience, clairaudient, clairvoyant. I always tell people, pay attention to how you speak naturally. If you're responding to someone, do you say, "Oh man, I feel you"? Well, you now know that you're clairsentient, and most of your messages are going to come through feeling from your body. If you are talking to someone, you say, "Yeah, I hear you. I hear you." You're clairaudient. You know that many of your messages are going to sound like they are literal voices coming in. Um, so those are kind of the things of discovering what's your unique language. Very helpful.
I see what you're talking about.
I know you're a feeler. Yeah, I know you're clairsentient, right? Yeah. When Because if you even think of that, when you think of your own experiences that you and I've worked together for so long, and when we ever talk about your animals and Rue and Meowsers and all of them, you have always shown your own intuitive psychic gifts because you feel what they feel. Tell me where I'm wrong.
No, I do, which actually creates with Jessica, who's also a feeler, can create some interesting feedback loops. And I feel what you're feeling, you feel what I'm feeling, and then I'm feeling this because you're feeling that, and then off to the races.
And then it gets jumbled and confused, and you're actually leading into
Yes.
a really big portion of what gets in our way. And this is going to be surprising, but very often it is our empathy. So, most of us that are tuned in and connected will refer to ourselves as empaths. But I hasten to caution people around really tying in too strongly to that empathic gift they have, because empathy can be a block. If I am about to receive a message that might be disturbing or troubling, or I'll use an example with an animal that I'm working with an animal that might be having some kind of trauma. If I become too overly empathetic, I'm not going to get any more messages. I will stop receiving, right? I have to get to that place of being neutral and being able to receive messages without attachment to them.
What does that have to do with, and I had a whole bunch of questions on it, but I haven't gone there at all today, with the challenges of the world today. Because if the world challenges appear overwhelming, then I think we could lock down as well, because we don't want to receive, because we don't want to know what's going on.
Exactly. And we don't, and we're getting caught. And I don't like to speak in, these big generalized terms, but I think that when big things happen in the world, we tend to get all caught in the story behind them. And and instead of being in a place of, "And this too shall pass." I mean, one of the messages I always get, that I always download over and over is, "Be still and know, and this too shall pass." And when we can take away, and again, it's this chatter, this monkey mind chatter of, "Oh my God," the monkeys love to like panic. "Oh my God, we're all gonna die." And if we can get out of that and sit and get calm and neutral, all of a sudden you'll have access to really helpful information that's free and void of fear and anxiety and the overwhelm. Years and years ago, another lifetime ago, I was training in the shamanic tradition. I was very interested in all of that culture, and was introduced to a teacher and a mentor in a book, Fool's Crow. And Fool's Crow was a a very well-known shaman. And Fool's Crow always taught about the gift of becoming the hollow bone. And of all the things that I've held on to, it's this image of being this hollow, clear receptacle where there's nothing in here that's going to tarnish or influence the message coming in. It's the beginner's mind. So when I sit down and I want to have a channeling with my higher guides or with your animals or with somebody's, mom maybe on the other side, I need to show up completely clear of any attachment, any story, any thoughts, any agenda that's going to cloud the messages. Be a receptacle of any and all information that's going to come in, and to have that ability to not want to change it, not want to influence the message. So this is where it can get tricky to channel, because I have experienced this myself where a message comes through and I want to say, oh, no, like that can't be right, and I won't, I guess I could dig for examples, but for the most part, it's about, I've asked a question. It's almost like is if you'd called a friend on a phone for some advice and they start to give you advice and you say, oh no, I don't want to hear that advice. I want you to give me this advice. I want you to tell me what I want to hear. And to become a true channel for yourself and for others, you need to be willing to just receive the message and deliver it as it comes to you.
We've got to have our sacred place, know our love language. We get to be the hollow bone. How do we then, because I see this even in the most famous of famous mediums and channels, there's always a pulse, which means there's always our own personal filters involved, which is why I think it's helpful to go to the source. But how do we get past our filters and our blocks so that we can trust? Again, trust. It's all coming back to trust. I trust the message that we're hearing.
Well, this is a bit stepping into my own personal soapbox of doing your own work before you seek out, to channel or connect. Because if we've got limiting beliefs, or if we've got unhealed wounds, if we've got any type of shadow beliefs that are stuck within us, they will override the simplicity, the beauty, the as I'm hearing this as they come in, it's like this the purity of a channeling coming in. If I've got a shadow that I'm holding on to, that sounds like maybe you're not smart enough, you're not good enough, who do you think you are? It leads to imposter syndrome. I can't tell you how many people, even myself, struggle with imposter syndrome. Where is this coming from? And so often, and I've kind of infiltrated this into my own course of teaching, is doing the work around your own shadows. The impulse of the soul, as we've all come here, is to be whole. It's to realize that we are the entirety of everything that we see in the world. So, leading into an even bigger part of this conversation is from our shadows, we tend to also step into projection. And oftentimes we want to be really aware of our own agendas, our own righteous beliefs, our own opinions, all of the things that are going to dirty, muddy, clog that hollow bone that's going to keep us from hearing the true message. And so, I know I'm going on and on, but it's finding our way out of our projections, knowing what they are, and being able to be free from them so that we can receive any kind of message.
A lot to unpack there, because what I hear people saying is, well, she just said that I can't channel. I can't hear from myself. And that's not what you're saying. What you're saying is that you get to do the shadow work. You get to dive in deep. You get to listen very deeply right now. And you get to be open and honest. What are the wounds? What are the things that I get to work on? What are the messages I'm telling myself?
Right. You know, I'm and also to know that you can ask for the clearance. You know, when you sit down in your sacred space and whatever ritual you've created, my ritual is always in the morning, before the sun is up. I love that's where I find my deepest connection, my most sacred time. And I do begin with prayer, and I believe that prayer is also a form of meditation. But to ask, let your messages be clear and guided, and guided. Let me know that what I receive is pure. Help me get out of the way so that I can receive you and use what you give me to help others. So, oftentimes, and it's going to sound so, whatever, but I will often say, use me, to my highest powers, use me for your good.
That's St. Francis's prayer, whether that's actually from St. Francis or not, but it is make me a vessel, make me an instrument of thy love, not make me an
Absolutely.
instrument of thyself.
Exactly. And and to be able to clearly give what you give to me. Here's where we circle back to what we started with, which is trusting the message and believing it. When I'm helping people and teaching people, mostly with animal communication, to receive messages, I always tell them, above all, believe them. Believe what they tell you. Um, because what happens is, in such an instant, because of our ego, we'll override it. If an animal comes and tells me something that completely goes against how my righteous opinion about, well, this is how it should be, I'm going to be more inclined to dismiss it. So it's learning to just receive it, have no attachment to it, and pass it on. One of my If I can give a quick example of overriding, I had been called, and again, this was years and years ago. I lived in a ranching community and was lucky enough that the people that lived there really utilized what I could do, and the message that came. So I had received a call to work on a cow that was going to be a 4-H project. And for people out there that may not know, the 4-H projects are teenagers and kids that are raising animals from babies to be sold, and to be sold for their meat. And so I get this call that there's an injured cow, and can I please come out? And so you better bet I am driving there with all of my righteous belief systems on and all zipped up, ready to save this cow and to tell these people.
This should be the vegan
That's
cheeseburger I pray
right. And
about.
even though, right, the vegan cheeseburger, right? And so here I go, and I show up, and this beautiful young cow, as I was getting ready to start telling them, we've got to, load in all the medicine and get her back well. And she said to me, how dare you? And I'll never forget hearing this, how dare you? And, I'll never forget just sort of having this moment of like, that cow just like scold me. And she had, because I was showing up with my own agenda, with my own belief systems. And what ensued, without going into, the big long tail, was this cow was very proud that she had been chosen to help this young boy get himself through college, because that was the whole point of raising a 4-H cow, is that all the money that he would raise would get him through school. And her connection to it was she had been chosen as one of his guides and mentors. And how dare I show up and try to insert my beliefs into something that wasn't true? It was a big lesson for me early on in my career of, I have to show up with no agenda and no opinion, because they're going to tell me things that I may or may not agree with.
Now, do all pets come in, and I don't know if we call her a pet or not, but do all pets come in with their own? It's almost a double agenda. Are they here on a mission to help us and on their own soul mission as well?
I think well, it's yes. So yes, they, it is this dual relationship we have. And I think that even we as human beings are experiencing the exact same thing. We're here having our own human experience, but we're also part of the divinity, And so when we can understand that and have that awareness that I'm both divine and human, we're going to have a much easier experience of this. But for animals, one of the first things that when I start a reading with an animal is to get them to share or ask them, because they love to talk about this, what is their purpose? What's their job? Why are they here? It's when I'm teaching my students, it's the one of my gimme questions, because if you say to an animal, what's your job? Oh my gosh, you're in, because you've shown curiosity, you've acknowledged that they're important and that they're special, and they always have an answer. And so yeah, they're here on their own divine, unique path. I think that that's often surprising for people when we get into readings, and this will go down a rabbit hole, but what we might feel is abusive and what animals don't, or what they believe they're here to do, just like that cow that I got to talk to.
One of the questions that my team wanted me to ask, and I don't actually have my notes up in front of me because I'm just allowing this to flow, was a question of, I cannot believe I'm going to go there. Forgive me, everybody. And yes, I could pull out my veganish kind of card here, but rodeo.
Oh, you're in.
And rodeo animals.
So you just like walked right into, one of my platform things, because my previous life, I was married to a rodeo cowboy. And
and I did. So I was 6.5 years with a girl who, after she finished grad school, and she had been dallying in her head, won a world championships in a rodeo.
Right?
So I was in that world with our horses.
Well, and this is, and I remember coming into this world from a very righteous position. I was borderline PETA. I had a lot of opinions about this, and I meet this man who has been involved in rodeo his whole life, and I'm suddenly thrust into this world, and I'm walking into it, thinking, oh, how am I going to save these poor abused animals, only to find out that they're some of the most well cared for animals that we find in sport. And I talked to a lot of them, and connected with a lot of them, and it's just such a fascinating world. For example, there was a horse that had a huge, trying to remember its name, I believe it was 40 Below, but there was a horse that had a bad reputation with the cowboys, that if they drew this horse to ride, they were going to end up, oh, they're in the dirt. And yet at the end of the rodeo, which, rodeo is all about entertainment, but at the end of the rodeo, or that particular uh, uh, whatever it was called, the bronc riders, they would send that same horse out with its 4-year-old little owner. And that horse would trot around the arena with this little 4-year-old on it. And it knew its job. It knew and it loved that it was going to get cowboys off. But it also knew the innocence and the beauty of this small child that rode it. And this isn't obviously going to be true for all rodeos, just like it's not true for all pet owners. There's going to be really, really amazing pet owners, and then there's going to be people that just have animals. And we have to release our judgment around it. But as far as rodeo went, I always joke that these horses and these bulls, most of them work something like, and I don't know what the true statistic is anymore, but it was something like they're going to work, 4 minutes a year because each ride is 8 seconds. And for the rest of the time, they're being fed well, they're being taken care of, they're being looked after. So again, there's a lot of judgment, and I think that there's a lot of education. One of the things that I have found in my life when I start to get caught up in my shoulds and my righteous opinions, which I have lots of them, is to educate myself. Am I right? Is there something else I might learn from this? Is there something I don't know?
Why does it seem so hard to trust ourselves or trust what we're hearing?
I think because, and this is going to be a big statement, but for me, that goes to childhood. I think that as children, and not always in a bad way, but we are taught to trust outside of ourselves. We have imaginary friends, and we're told that we have great imaginations. We can communicate with the cat in our room, or the neighbor's dog, or our grandmother who's no longer with us, and we're taught that, oh, isn't that cute? And I think that there's this part of us that then stops to trust that connection, and we start to look to others for that validation. And I think that then continues on, is that as we grow up, and it follows us, I think, all the way through our lives, of looking for validation from others. I receive this message and I look to you, Michael, do you think that's right? Or, when I do readings with people, and I swear to God, every time they're always nodding. I'll say, oh my gosh, your cat is such a prima donna, and she is so mad that you've brought in this filthy, disgusting dog. And they're nodding, and they already know this,
Let alone a rooster.
let alone a rooster. Oh man, those were the days where you didn't want to receive the messages back then. And those were, so it's this piece where they knew this was happening, but they looked outside of themselves for the validation, because again, we're back to that right or wrong thinking, and this shadow belief of, there's no way I could do this. I'm not special, you're special. And it's a birthright. We're born connected. We tend to lose that connection somewhere in our childhood.
Thank you. So I want to take this for a minute to, I don't know if big picture is the right term. This might appear to be several questions at once. We may need to parse this or pull this apart. Um, Communicating with our soul having a plan, or does it have a plan for us? And how much is the plan changed by collective consciousness right now?
Big question. That's a big question. And, I think that collective consciousness creates the plan, right? And I think that the impulse of the soul, is to come have this experience of evolution. When, oftentimes when I'm doing past life regressions with people, the reason we're doing them is to find out, what was the point? What was I here to learn? And so I think that the plan of the soul is to learn and to evolve, and to leave behind our our shadow thoughts, our lower thinking, to become one. And so, the word plan, is there a plan? I feel like there's more of a desire, the desire to be whole, the desire to be connected. This overwhelmingly, I think it's exciting that more and more and more people are becoming aware that there is collective conscience. That a lot of what we're feeling in the world today, this overwhelm, this anxiety, is because it's this collective energy that we're all feeling. And I really think it's why it's so beautiful when people come together to do meditation or prayer as a collective conscious, and you instantly feel the relief. So as far as plan, maybe there is a plan, or maybe it's just desire to evolve.
Thank you. So to steal the words of Neil Donald Walsh, who we had on last week, Conversations with God, is this the storm before the calm? Is this all the energies we're feeling right now of that worry, that fear, of anxiety, just helping us to evolve? Or is it the choices, or is it choice C, all of the above? Is it the choices we're making that's putting us in this state right now?
And maybe it's a yes and, it's this, it's that what instantly comes to mind is that, a diamond comes out of the pressure of the coal, right? And that I don't think that we're here to have sedentary experiences, that we're here to have an experience of all of it. What is that experience to have frustration or anger or fear, and then to find out that it is followed up by love? I mean, I think one of my experiences I always tap back into of the beauty of collective conscious and how you find it is going back to the tragedy of 9/11, and to have this unthinkable, unimaginable event happen that was followed instantly by humanity falling back in love with each other. For just that short amount of time, everyone was one. And so do you get there just on your own, or does it oftentimes take the pressure to create the diamond, which is what I believe we're experiencing?
Do we need it to be that way? Can we choose for humanity to be a different way? Or is that part of the sort of like we came here, I call it divine, immortal, energetic beings having an energetic experience in human form? Is that part of the human form and therefore part of the design, like having a nervous system that's wired for fight or flight?
I think what we're really talking about is we can't choose. We're kind of delving into like what can we control and what we can't, which is nothing. So it's not, can we choose to have a different reality, which might be seen as spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity? But it's the choice of, do I want to react to this or do I want to respond to this? And do I want to come at what we perceive to be happening from a place of acceptance, radical acceptance, a place of, what I keep hearing is this into something better, and again, we're back to that conversation of wrong versus right thinking. What is right about this? What's the beauty we see out of this? I mean, and again, one of the things that struck me was back in the days of COVID, when we had that moment of shutdown, and all of a sudden we saw this world emerge of beauty, and dolphins swimming in Venice, and the skies clearing up. I mean, it was just this moment of like, we could either see this as like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that ever happened, or look around and be like, oh my God, this is beautiful. This is an amazing experience we're being given for this short amount of time.
Thank you. So, I'm going to go there, short amount of time that we have left, what's our soul's gift to us, or our greatest soul's gift?
The minute you say that, I hear the word love. It's the experience of love. And that's not just some like generic throw out term, that experience of understanding what it is to feel that deep connection, that when we connect with loving all that is and receiving that back in, you can't feel anything but peace in this moment, but connection.
If I'm going to Meowsers and I want to channel Meowsers or communicate with Meowsers, does going to that state of love make the greatest difference?
Absolutely. One of the, I don't necessarily always believe in props or, tools but when I sit to communicate, I even brought it today, when I sit, to connect and communicate, I always have some form of rose quartz with me, because it does represent unconditional love and the purity of form, and that absence of the shadow thinking, or the absence of the lower vibration, the absence of the righteousness that we come up against, or the judgment. When you sit and you dwell in the energy of unconditional pure connection, there all that you can receive then is that energy of self-love, of kind of that overwhelming parent-child connection that we have with divine source.
This isn't shaped with a rose quartz heart, and we did before we moved several times this year, had one in Meowser's bed. But what I'm doing through this whole interview is, and all of my classes, I send love, I send love, I send love, and I think that puts us in a very safe, secure place where we can hear much easier because the mind doesn't have an agenda. Okay, it could have the agenda of love. That's not a bad agenda to have.
Exactly. If you're going to have an agenda, and we all have agendas, what if you show up with the agenda of, I love you? And, this is namaste, right? The soul in me loves the soul in you. And it's that release of judgment, which we use to protect ourselves. That is why we're judgmental beings. It is why we hold on to righteous opinions. We're only doing it because it is a form of survival. But when we can drop that baggage that we carry around and just sit in what I love to call radical acceptance of all that is, you're right and I'm right and they're right, we start to come to a place of understanding each other better, maybe. And this is animals as well as humans, as well as souls, as well as, other beings. It's, what if we were all here? What if we're all in it together?
Woohoo! All right, I got the weirdest question of the day, and then I want to know where people can go to find your work. And this came from my team, and this was the spotted lanternfly question. What is their purpose if they are so invasive that we are told to kill them on sight?
That's such an ethical question, because now we're going to delve into what every
This gets right back to the rodeo.
Right? It's like that
or 4-H.
Or that every being has a purpose here and everything has come. For me, I don't know much about the spotted lanternfly.
Neither do I.
For me, that would probably be yellow jacket wasps. They're just sort of the bane of my existence. They're very scary. I was attacked by them as a small child, and so I'm always like, oh, what is your purpose? You don't even have a purpose on the planet. You don't even pollinate, which is probably not true. But when it comes right down to it, it's whether can I live in unison with you? Can we exist together? And so again, this is an ethical question. And there's a book out there in the universe. I think it's called The Book of Questions. But they do have a book. There is a question in there about, would you ever pull the wings off a butterfly? And most people, right? Exactly. But then the next question is, would you kill a roach? Now, for those of us, I wouldn't kill it. I would take it out. But a lot of people wouldn't think twice, right? So you've got a really existential question going on here. And what this question is what's in the heart of the person that, each one of us, as you ask these questions, what I can feel around us as we're all tuned into this is that each one of us just had a very different answer to that. And it all speaks to what your truth is and what your belief is. And that's what we have to suspend when we go to channel. Because if I'm going to have a moment with a spotted lanternfly, it might tell me that it's here because it has to have all these babies and that's all it knew. And then it's going to peace out.
Yeah. I know when it comes to a mosquito, for myself, I'm like, take what you need. It's okay. And the funny thing is, I don't get a swollen mosquito bite anymore because I say, take what you need and I'll be fine. And go back, do your thing. Although if Mama Bear says there's a mosquito around, it's going to get Hana Bear. I need you to kill it. I'm like, I am so sorry. And on to the next life you go.
And maybe that's not such a bad thing. There's also that we're going to get down the rabbit hole of that insects that hit the windshields, right? They're instantly off into a new life. And maybe that was exactly what their lifetime was here. And again, I think that even though we're joking a little bit about this, it's a very unique, personal journey that each one of us is having. Yes, our souls are here for a unique journey. And who are we to say what that is?
Okay, so then one last question before we go to where we can find your work, and this is one Jessica's been certainly pushing me lately, and I feel that push and pull as well, which is, Michael, what are we doing for the earth right now? What are we doing as we're watching this place? You can call it what you want. You can say it's political, but the world is clearly changing, folks. Okay, what can we do to help Mother Earth or help the animals at this time? Because while it's an ethical question, I don't believe we can just say, oh, they came here for this journey and there's nothing we need to do.
I mean, as the world's changing, I think that we need to be stepping up and becoming stewards for those that it's affecting, including ourselves. But, you know, we had a lot of fires here in Colorado this summer, and one of the big things that went out was, please put out water for the wildlife, because they're not going to be able to access their water. And so what you see is that people start to do exactly that. We start to care for the wildlife as much as we're caring for the inner wildlife. And this isn't, but we've been doing this regardless for years. I mean, people have been feeding birds for years. When you see statues of St. Francis, he's sitting around, there's all these animals around him. You've got to believe that at some point he had snacks for them, so.
Bribes,
Right.
it.
And so, yes, I do believe that we have a deep calling to be stewards, and that in the midst of this change, we've got to take our power back. And we've got to step up for what is right, and again, that's going to bring up, like, what's right for you might be different for what's right for him or her or me, but it's showing up and saying, this is how I would like to be of service. And this is how, and it could be feeding one bird, or it could be, clothing the entire world through, thread up, or any of these other things that we're trying to do.
Yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So where can people go, Megan, to find your work, to find out more, even though we were talked about at the start, you don't need a meter or channel to get the greatest medium, channel, or pet communicator out there?
Well, I'm passionate about teaching people to become their own communicators and their own guides. I have a course that I'm launching in February, actually, that's a little bit different, about teaching animal communication, but also helping people get out of their shadows and get out of their prejudices and projections, so that they can be better receivers. And so that's happening in February, and that'll go out on my newsletter. But you can find me at soulspeak.biz and book with me there.
And can you spell that for everybody?
Yeah, it's SOULSPEAK, soulspeak.biz, B-I-Z.
Fantastic. And wow, we covered the gamut here today. But bring it home, bring it full circle to trust, to love, to hearing from the other side. Any words that you want to share with people? Last words.
Absolutely, that it is your birthright, your connection to divine beings, divine spirit. Your connection to your pets is real. Your connection to your loved one on the other side is real. It is your birthright. All you have to do is be quiet, be still, be here now, and receive your messages. Believe.
Woohoo! Thank you so much. See, that was great.
Was it?
So,
yes, it was. I love it.
So, for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, go quiet, listen, trust, and trust, and trust some more, as that hollow bone that you are, and above and beyond all else, shine bright. Woohoo!
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you so much. How does it get any better than this?
We'll see.
Oh, what a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful interview with a beautiful, 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 beautiful soul. I love Megan so much. I love you so much. I know you can connect. I know you can hear from the other side. And yes, there is some discernment. There is some being the hollow bone, but you can do this. On that note, If you want to learn how to play at that highest level, vibrating at the highest, most amazing creator level that you are, come join us for the School of Mystics, 4 Wednesdays each month, always recorded in case you can't make it live, where we're helping you learn, we're helping you grow, helping you hear from the other side, and shifting your energy to the highest level. Here's the link down below to come join us. There are monthly clearings, there's weekly attunements, meditations, community, so much more. It's where I get to share the highest level with you and help shift your energy as well. Again, that's that link down below to the School of Mystics. If you simply want to bring your energy up, way up each and every day, simply sign up for our newsletter. That is Daily Woohoo. That's that link down below, dailywoohoo.com. And if you want to learn how to communicate with the other side and hear back and have direct conversation, if you want to hear from the other side and hear back, I teach a live class on automatic writing each and every month where you go quiet, you put pen to paper, and the words from the other side, from your angels, from your guides, from your loved one begin to flow. That's that link down below, automaticwriting.com. On that note, here's a link to the next somewhere. Here's a link to the next amazing show. Love you so, so much, and keep on shining bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this? Lots of love.
Shine bright.